All right, so there's some people on OS2 world that's talked about wanting to be able to transfer from, they were talking about primarily their phones to, to and from OS2. And same principles that you'd use for the phone, which I don't know about iPhones, so.
I did a presentation a couple of years ago on this.
So I can't answer that one, but there is a presentation on that.
Yeah, just see my earlier one.
Yeah. So this is, more the Android. I'm sure you can do the same thing with this, which is a little different than I think than Neil, the way Neil did it. I just don't know which tools to use, but it'll work essentially the same way. With the Android, Linux, and Windows can all work the same way in this regard. The three primary ways that I personally use would be FTP, Samba, or NFS. And I don't really use NFS that much, so I never remember how to set it up. So it's not the one I primarily use, but I've been thinking about setting that up. So primary, what we're going to look at is FTP and Samba. And I'm going to go through the slides real quick just to give an overview of it, then I'm going to go into the actual, setup on it here. So the advantages from my perspective of FTP is that it's an easy connection to set up and it's a fast transfer. The Samba, though, it's easier to transfer multiple files, though that's only partially true, and especially with directories. And then you can access it as a drive, so that has some advantages there. The disadvantages is that it's less convenient on the client side for multiple transfers in general. Now on my phone, I can go through there and I just go click, 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 and then it'll just handle it on its own. But things I typically on Linux or Windows, I'm using command line client. You can do an mget, but it's less convenient that way. Although lately I've played with on Windows, I found that I can use the File Explorer and actually have it connect directly to the FTP client, and so then I can kind of handle it that way too. Then on the Samba, it's a little more complicated to set up the server, not extremely, but a little more complicated on the server side, and the client can be more complicated. Again, that's, primarily I'm taking there Linux. I never remember how to set it up on Linux, and it's just a pain for me every time I go to do it. So Windows, it's simple. OS2, it's simple. Phone's simple, but on Linux, I never remember how to set it up, and I got to go hunting how to do it again. So this is just we'll have to make these available, but this is just the links on where you can get the FTP servers done by Peter Moylan. And that's his website there. Yesterday I couldn't get to, yesterday or the day before I couldn't get to his site. Today I got to it, but I couldn't actually download the FTP server. It said the file couldn't be found there. There is an older version available on Hobbs. It's not the current one though. I think he just hadn't gotten around to updating it.
Really?
Yeah, it's 2.78 that's out on Hobbs, and it's 2.83 or 2.82 that's the current version.
Interesting. Okay.
Then there's the Samba server. Now the easiest way to do it is install it through Yum. It's available in the Arkanoi RHEL. It's not on the NetLabs, but it is on the Arkanoi RHEL. But you can also download it. Now 4.11 is the long-term release, LTS release. There is Smedley also put out a 4.12 or 4.15, I can't remember, but it's actually an older version than the current 4.11, because the 4.11 release is a release that's long-term. I think the one that we have on the Arkanoi RHEL may be newer than this one here. I can't recall though for certain. And then the GUI tools that are available in the NetLabs, and they do work with ArcOS with the Samba 4. I'm not sure if there's anything that doesn't work. I haven't come across it yet, but they do work. So they're not necessarily the easiest tools to use, but they do function. All right, so these are some some of the links that you can get some help from. Neil's got come across one. He's got some good help out there. But the track, this is where the original Samba 3 was at. And what did I do there? Oh, I know what happened. How do I go back? There we go. I clicked. Okay, and then the OS2 World Forum has got some stuff out there. I can't remember what was out there on that, but I came across it and it was it was good stuff. So I put it on here. All right, so this is just a screenshot that I put on there. Just this is the main thing that you'll use on the FTP. As far as and it's relatively simple, and then that's what you run into get with the Samba. Not a lot different, but it's enough different.
Well, a bunch of those accounts are created automatically.
Yeah, so a lot of that stuff's automatic, and that's also one of the things that kind of throws you is that there's stuff out there that you don't. One of them that at one point was getting created was Wheel, and that one turned out caused grief, and I couldn't figure out what in the world was going on. Thing was working, then all of a sudden my stuff wasn't working, and all right, and then on the phone side, I use the CX File Explorer, and I saw on the OS2 World site somebody else was talking about using that one. Someone, I think it was Dave Yo, referenced the Explorer. I haven't used that one, but there's several different ones. And I guess I'm a little early on that piece, but that's all. That's all of the that we've got for the. For the slides here. Now then, what I find more interesting is the actual pieces. In fact, I've got the FTP server up there that I use to transfer the file over for the presentation. So that's my primary go-to, mostly because I've gotten used to it, especially from Linux. Like I said, for me, trying to remember how to pull those over from how to set up the Samba shares from Linux. I never remember how to do it, so I've gotten where I just throw my I'd get disgusted, throw up my FTP server, and pull it across. So that's why I say that one's simple, all the way around. Now then, we'll kill it here. All right, let's see. Just a little bit small comparative. All right, so maybe it showed it off screen.
Go with the
Okay, now I don't know what it did.
get back to the virtual machine.
Oh, that's what's happening. Okay.
It's like
There it is. Screen sizes. Okay, so you can, with this, it'll let you run off of run a remote one. I've never tried to do that. I've always just done the local one.
Works nicely. Look, you never know the difference.
Yeah. And it's start back over here at basic. I really never play with these. I leave the defaults. I mean, if you change the port number, for instance, you'd have to figure out then on your client side how to change the port. So I mean, I just leave the defaults. But if you got a reason to, it's as easy on the server side. You change the port number, and you just have to. I'm sure it's not hard to do it on the client. I've just never bothered to try to. I leave the defaults on the logging. If there's something more you want, I mean, you can go into that, but that's, again, it all works just leaving it as the defaults. again, I leave the options the same, but if you wanted to say, okay, I don't want it on a specific interface, then you can turn that off. But for the most part, if you're going to be using FTP, you're probably using it within your own network generally, because FTP is not a secure way of transferring. It'll send your password in clear, so you're not going to probably want to be doing that outside of your own environment where you've got control of what's there. Now you can limit who can get to which IP addresses can get to your server. So if you had multiple, so if you had just wanted to have one of your systems on your network be able to get to it, you can do that here. You can come in there and say, okay, I will only allow certain ones. I've got multiple VLANs subnets on my network at home, so that because I was doing basically testing and playing with some Cisco equipment, and so I could sit there and say, okay, I only want certain range to be able to access it. But like I said, that's mostly if you're just trying to keep it a little more secure, but mostly that's not how you're going to use this. So again, the main thing you're going to that I would say you're going to be playing with is the users here. For instance, I came in here, I've got this one here. It has access to a specific directory. This one here has access to a specific directory. And the Warpstock, when I created, has access to a specific directory. In this case, I created a Warpstock folder that Neil was looking at earlier with his presentation. And basically, if you come in here, you can edit the directories and tell it that you want to give it more other things. You can add a child to that one, which I don't. I'll be honest with you, adding the child, I don't understand the terminology. I just know that, say, if I want to go in there and add it, I can say, okay, I want to add a specific file. I typically use a link, and I give it a name of some sort so that it shows up, and then I can come in here and say, and then it'll show up as test there.
The terminology child just means that it appears like a subdirectory.
Okay, yeah.
It may or may not be an
But
actual
it shows up.
subdirectory in the file system.
But it shows
Could-
up as
It shows up as a subdirectory,
Okay, yeah.
but it could be pointing to a completely different file system on another machine.
Yeah. So this is my primary one I use, and this one has full access to both my E drive and my G drive, which is where anything I generally want to access is going to be at. So that is, I mean, like I said, that to me is just a really simple thing. So if you're just trying to transfer some files, that's the easy one to use. But like I said, it has some disadvantages from a command line perspective. You can get to get more than one file at a time. The Samba. Where is my? Let's just go. All right. So this here, to do initial setup, the simple Samba configuration center, if it's not been run before, if you look down at the bottom, which it shows right here, it shows the /config. But when it first is set up, it has /install. And if you're wanting to recreate the whole thing, the whole setup, you can change that back to install, and it'll go back through and setting up a new conf file, SMB conf file. And once it goes through the setup, an initial setup, it'll with an install, you go through just answering questions. Whether mostly it's, do you want to totally wipe out the current config, the conf file or not. Generally, if I'm going through that, it's yes.
Yeah.
That's the reason I'm going through this. So you go through there and you can recreate your root password and go through, and it's just answering the questions, and you get to this point here. There's not, like I said, all these they're not the cleanest tools, but they do the job. The one thing that I did, that's the reason I had you test that earlier, is that by default, however, it does not set things up in as secure a fashion as you would like. So if you don't go in and edit this conf file, which would be easier if I realized I needed to do this earlier. So if you come in and edit this conf file, the easiest way to add this here is I go in there and add valid users. So for everything, I want to be able to have this user be able to access. By default, it had no valid users, which meant that all users had access. Yeah. That was after I changed that. After I had you test that, I added this, and then I tried to connect to it, and then with under the different user ID, and then it was the access denied you would expect.
Oh, so I can't use my saved NBC anymore?
Correct. But yeah, that was why I had that test, because it was like, But yeah, so you probably at a minimum want to go in there and add that to anything that has anybody else on the network. But again, this is not necessarily something you're going to be using outside of your own. So it's not as critical as it could be, but I would recommend doing it just to protect it. If nothing else, you could probably add a valid user there that doesn't exist, and then nobody can get to it because that user doesn't even exist.
Andy, what does read only mean?
Read
You're
only?
gonna serve files.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you would do with let people read.
Yeah, well, this here, no. See, this is Samba, which is just just like the IBM Net Client, the old IBM
File and print.
File and print. You can set it up to read and write or to read only. So a user has access. You can set it up. Say, okay, no matter what this is going to do, and I hadn't really played with this to test if it works or not. I'm assuming it does, but I hadn't played with it. Is that if I go in there and say for this D drive, for instance, read only, if I put a yes there, no matter what the user's access is, I would expect this. And like I said, I haven't tested this to verify it. But the only reason to have a read only equals line in there that makes any sense is say if that says yes, no matter what the user's rights are, that should only be a read only access. Because even the CD-ROM, I think, by default is a read only equals no. But I can't test that on here until I swap the CD on mine. I swapped the CD route and put a second hard drive in it. So, but let me double check. Cause I think it does have I think it does keep a placeholder though for my USB. Yeah. Okay, read only equals, it doesn't have it on the S drive. So that's also the second possibility of what it's for. It seems that the S drive, which is a USB CD-ROM, is saying, oh, doesn't have read only equals no there, so it says, oh, this is something like a CD-ROM.
There may be the Texas or read-only file system.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like I said, I haven't played with that. Like I said, my assumption would be though is that if it's going to have a read only equals no, that if you put a yes, it shouldn't be able to write to it. But I haven't tested that. Mostly, like you can see though, there's not a whole lot to this. I mean, you can I have in the past tested the, using a printer, you know, that's another thing that Samba has an advantage of that I didn't think of when I was putting that other on there. Samba, you can actually share printers as well, and it does work. I did have to at one point, I can't remember if they put that in on the other side though, but I had to make a change to the SMB print because there was, I can't remember what it was. I had to make a change to it because it wasn't working. But this was a decade ago, so I can't remember what it was.
I don't know.
But it was working. And man, this is hard to. Let's see if I can get down. All right, so. All right, so like here's one of my printers there, and you know, the spooler, the printable, yes. But then this SMB print. That's actually a VxRex program, is what that is. And all it does is when a file comes in there, that just sends it over to the printer. That's all it does. And there was some little thing with VxRex that I had to make a little change to get it working. I think that it was picked up and put in, but if somebody's trying to use that and it doesn't work, then I might need to go back and figure out what that was. But that is one advantage that Samba does have, is you can share printers. What I've done with it is like that PDF Write one above it, which I don't have working correctly right now, PDF Write working correctly, but I used to create PDF files from another machine going through it. That's less of an issue now that almost everything can write PDFs now, but that was the big thing I used it for. All right, and then, but as you notice there, there's just not a whole lot to that file, so if you go in there and need to edit the thing, it's easy, relatively easy to do. And then Samba, that's the wrong one. All right. For some reason, the one thing I have found with the Samba users and groups, no, it's the Samba status monitor. It just threw an error. For some reason, it'll throw an error. I okay that. I launch it again, it goes fine. And it does that the next time I go to launch it, it'll throw the error. And I have to launch it again.
Sounds like an uninitialized variable.
So, but that's been consistent with the version 4. This is where it's a little, like I said, this is where it's a little more complicated than the other, mostly because it just has things that you don't necessarily think about. So it's got, so let's actually do it from the create side. Alright, so give it a user, and you can give it a full name or not, that's up to you. Again, same with the description, although I think everything that's in there is by default German. I hadn't noticed that before today. I don't know what.
Well, Hervik wrote it, so I don't know.
Yeah. And then you can tell it no password, but generally it's probably not what you want to do. But it does not do any password testing, so so you can get away with just about anything. So it's not like it's not definitely not secure by default.
Even using the Samba 4 server that you're using, there's no minimum password length.
There is on the 3 that is installed by
Samba
default.
4 does have a minimum password length.
It might, but I haven't checked to see if there's a minimum, but it's not. I don't think this catches it as well. I don't think.
Oh,
this
the
catches
GUI
it.
doesn't
Yeah, I don't
catch it.
think- yeah.
No, the GUI won't, but the Samba 4 server will.
Yeah.
It will consider that to be an invalid password for that user and never allow that user to log in
So,
Okay,
unless you relax that setting in the global stanza.
so,
I don't think that works. At least not on 3.
and then, most of the time when I'm creating a user, I'm not giving it a, home directory. But if you decide you want to, it'll default to the location for this, like this says eHome Samba, it actually defaults to your MPTN, etc. Samba users, and then the user ID. I just changed that earlier in the conf file to point to eHome Samba, and then it adds, there's a %u that adds the user that you're creating then. So then if you hit create, it would go ahead and create it here. And, or you can hit choose and you go choose something direct, else. It just brings up a file checker, file picker. Oh, it does actually check for the too short. It actually does do that. I was thinking it didn't.
Interesting. Okay.
I was thinking I'd check that, but I had not. Yes.
Is there, does anyone can name, tell me what the minimum now, the numbers is?
For the
The characters for the.
Password?
Password there.
It's settable.
8 or,
It's
6
it's settable on that configuration file.
Yeah, I think by default it's probably 8, but let's go see. I think it's.
So one of mine, but it's short, so.
Right.
Maybe it's opening somewhere else in the screen.
No, I just wasn't taking. All right.
I
let's
thought it was
see.
here.
Well, it may be that you have to add it if you want to change it.
Oh.
And that it's gonna be 8, it's probably 8, I just used 8 and it took it, it's probably 8, if you don't set it to something else. Again, that's not something that I'm not putting this into production environments. I did have 3.6 set up at one point, and I had to have a very specific version of 3.6, which is one of the reasons I'm using 4. I used to not be able to get 3.6 in the environment I was using it in, I would go through and do nothing, and then it might have 100 different machines trying to connect to it at one time, transferring one file.
Yeah.
And actually transfer one file one way, one file the other direction. And that was, it would sit there and lock the system if I used anything except for one specific version of, and the problem was that it was almost impossible to get anybody else to be able to recreate it, recreate the problem, because I happened to have an environment that had several hundred machines. They could randomly decide they were all going to connect at one time. So now I could force them to all connect at one time if I brought the server down, left it down for long enough that everything was going to be trying to connect, and then when I brought it up, they would all try to connect, and then it was going to lock the machine. So, and I'd have to kill the thing off, bring it back up, and catch a few more of them, and I'd have to keep rebooting it until finally it had caught up. But it could run forever, until, for whatever reason, a bunch of them tried to hit. But that one version would sit there and not have any problems. So, and then on this machine, that machine actually over there, it would sit there and 3.6, I could never get it working right. Now, I think it had something to do with that wheel. And by the time I figured out that was it, I'd already moved to the 4, and I wasn't going to go back.
The wheel account.
Yes.
Tell me if I'm getting ahead of you, but this is just a Samba server on an OS2 box.
Yes.
But the title was how to transfer back and forth.
Yes.
And I have an application. I want to get stuff off my Android phone.
Yep.
So how do you'd have to have an FTP client on the Android phone?
Yes.
And what about the other way? How do you get the files off the Android phone?
Okay, the
You
way
gonna
I,
get to that, or is that tomorrow, or?
no, I mean, it's fine. The way I do it, now this is, is that I have the servers running on the OS2 side.
Mhm.
Now then, if I want a file off of my phone and I want it on my PC,
Mhm.
I fire up the server, because I don't leave them running all the time. I fire them up when I want them. I fire it up. I go over to the phone. I connect in with the client. Once the client's connected up, I select the file. I transfer it over. If I want the file from the PC, same process. It's
So
just that
how
I
does the
pull it
phone
over.
get an IP address?
How does it get an IP address?
Yes.
Which IP address? The IP address I want to connect to,
No,
or the IP address of the phone itself?
Network, that's what, over the access phone via Wi-Fi, and that's where it's host servers on.
I'll show it to you in just a second. Okay.
yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah, that's going to be really the next step. I just
Thank you.
so. All right. So basically, though, this is just showing the simple, in simple terms, the setup. There's nothing really to it. You got to play with it, think about it a little bit, but it's really very simple. But you get the thing set up. So. All right, so we got the Samba server. This is one oddity I'm not certain about. Today is the first time I've noticed this. It seems to be working, but for whatever reason, the NMDB exec says it's not running, but it seems to be working. I'm not certain. Normally it shows running right there. I'm not, like I said, I'm not certain. But it was working earlier, so I don't know what's going on with that, because I've never seen it not running and everything be working.
Isn't that just a master browser mostly?
That may be. To be honest with you, I don't remember what that is. That sounds like it's probably what it is.
So if you
Normally
have a
it's-
master browser or if you're not using one, it can still work.
Yeah. But normally when I've launched this, it was running. And when when everything was working right, it was running. So that's why it surprised me that if everything's working right, it's not running. Like you said, I think it is the master browser. It's not a big deal to me, but it was an oddity. All right, so that's launched. Let me go double check the FTP. I think I've got that to restart. Yep. All right. Now then.
Is the HDMI cable
Mhm.
projector is making that sound? Because when he unplugged the cable, the sound was not the humming.
Well, it's possible. It's
All right.
possible. I don't know.
So from this side, from the phone.
Yeah, but what is the dongle you plugged in?
Now this is only so that I can do this.
So what have you plugged in?
I plugged
That's
it-
just for the display. That has nothing to do with the file transfer.
Okay,
It's
so
just
we're
for
gonna go to the
display.
file transfer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Now this particular unit here does have it does have an ability to put in a Ethernet cable, but I'm not using it here.
Yeah. So what is it? Just tell me so I know.
This here, it's
Display port to HDMI, isn't it?
yeah, it's called it's a USB Type C hub Pro. I mean, it's just one.
All right, it's USB
Yeah.
C.
And-
So
Okay, so it plugs in over the USB-C port on the
That's
receiver.
only
Yes.
that's only
I'm
for
only doing-
purposes of that.
yeah, I'm doing it. Right now I'm only plugging in for the purposes of getting the
Got it.
display.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
I didn't know such a hardware existed. That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
So I have used the Ethernet, but in fact I've got a splitter so I can power my phone with the PoE when I'm going through this thing.
Okay, but if you plugged in the Ethernet cable to that, would it get an IP address from the?
Yes, well, if it's when it's working right, yes. But I mean, what I've got, you know, as it is right now, it's using
You're doing Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi.
Okay.
And in fact, I need to double check to make sure that I'm connected to the correct Wi-Fi. Yes, okay. So, like I said, the one I use is this CX File Explorer. It's just the one it's the one I've found that I prefer. I deleted I had the connections on here, but deleted them, so we can just go through them. I just come in here, choose the remote, add one, add the remote, and the SMB and the FTP are the two that we're discussing here. I believe Peter has an SFTP
Right.
module, doesn't he?
Yep.
He has an SFTP server, yes, but
I
it
haven't
behaves in a non-standard fashion.
Okay, now I hadn't tried it yet, so.
No, I haven't tried it either.
Alright, so from this perspective, it's actually either one's about as easy as the other. So you come in here, and I just put the IP address in. I know my IP address from home, and it's actually saved in here, but of course it doesn't work. It's not the same here, so I got to come in here and add it. So. And then username. And this is where this is easier. Alright.
This is an app that you downloaded from Google Play
Yes,
Store?
yes. Yeah, it's the one I use. Like I said, somebody else on OS2 World during the discussion, they also mentioned they use it. Another one that I haven't tried that was mentioned was X-Explorer. No, X-Explorer rather. I haven't used that one, but Dave Yo mentioned that one.
Good to know.
It may be better than this one, I don't know. What did I do? Oh, case on the password. Alright. And this should now say,
There you go.
so trying to access the queue now does not work. But the Warpstock one, let's do this one here. Alright.
Yeah.
So
There we go.
now if I wanted to transfer a file to here, I would come over here to the local. We'll say go to the SD drive, for instance, download. Let's say ArcOS. Yeah, okay. We'll just take that file, highlight it. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come back. I'll go over to the network. I'll select the one I had there, and I want to put it in here. So I select that, then I paste it in. And if I wanted to grab all these files, I could just select all those files, or even the folder if I wanted to. Again, I can copy it and then put it onto the go the other direction, copy it to the phone. Then same exact principle. If I want to go with FTP, I put the IP address in. That's why I said simpler is in some cases
Look,
not so much.
FTPS instead of SFTP.
Yeah.
I don't think they're the same.
Yes.
Let's see, 8.
One's a protocol, the other's just FTP wrapped in SSL.
Yeah, I don't think they interoperate either.
Alright, and okay. Now this is where I said I gave it a folder name, the way that I created it. That's when you open that up, there's the actual link. Again, it'll work the same way in this, inside this app as the other does. So it's really, this, on the phone side, it makes it, it's almost it's essentially the same whether you're using Samba or FTP as far as what you're seeing on the phone.
Another thing that you can do with this that you just sort of skipped over is
Yeah.
if you've got files on your OS2 box and you want them on the cloud, you had a whole recipe of several
Yeah.
cloud sources that you could have
Yeah.
pasted those files to.
Yeah, I don't really do that, so I
No.
haven't really.
Right, but
But yeah, it
you
is.
go,
It
well,
is
how do I get to the cloud from OS2? Well, your
That's-
phone can be the answer.
That is a way of doing it. Yes.
Yeah.
So you come in here and you can say, okay, I want to connect. Now Dropbox, I actually have a Dropbox. I actually have the Dropbox. I bought the Dropbox client.
Oh, yeah, but does it still work?
It did. It's been a. Well, let me check.
It's been a while, and mine doesn't work anymore.
Mine was working the other day, but I had to.
I got a notice from them saying you had to do something or we're gonna delete you.
Oh, no, that's not the same.
So did you do some?
Yeah, I went in and added a phone number in my profile or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, accidentally there's a file there and I never used
I
it.
don't remember. I have to look and see which drive letter I gave it.
But it's
Uh,
there.
Yeah, not important.
But that is another way you could even go about this, is you say, okay, I'm gonna use the Dropbox thing, move the stuff to Dropbox and move it across to here. Is
Yeah.
another, that is another option. I mean, there's lots of ways of getting
Well,
there.
We'll ask Bob for his presentation if we can bother with twice.
But, okay, let's see, it was the InDrive? I wanna say it was the InDrive.
Eventually I'm gonna map the Google Drive to a drive, but I'm gonna go off on
But that's basically, that's everything. If there's questions though, at this point, that's the only thing left.
Ah, it looks nice.
Andy?
Yes.
The step forward as the Samba native, where do I get the basic stuff for people to learn how to use Samba?
The Samba, well, so the links that I had up here earlier. Neil's got a site. His site's got some stuff written on it. That's a good starting point. The track site on NetLabs that's referring to the Samba.
The cookbook, right?
The cookbook.
Yeah.
It's got some good stuff because specifically for
For OS2,
OS2.
Yeah.
It also has links into just Samba, just in general off of there.
Yeah.
And then there's a link. There was a discussion on OS2 World that I have in that presentation. Like I said, those will be you'll be able to get to those. I'm not sure when I guess we'll have those uploaded here soon. But anyway. There was a discussion in there I came across. I don't remember what the strong points on that one was because I came across it and I copied it because hey, that was that had some good stuff in it. I just don't remember what it was.
Yeah. But I know I find I don't know everything about using Samba on OS2, and I looked at you giving the presentation and saying I don't know how that parameter works. So there's a lot. It's not well documented.
So, Andy, you'll make your slides available?
Yeah, they'll be uploaded.
Excellent.
Basically all the slides should be put up on
Yeah.
on the Warpstock site.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Probably after the conference.
Yeah.
Some days after.
Yeah.
I should probably send you mine.
What's that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I should probably send you my slides.
yeah, that's right, because you use your notebook, but your laptop for your.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
To answer your question, I think it was the InDrive, and it's not showing anything. So
Okay.
it wasn't too long ago. It was. So I don't know what changed.
Yeah, it stopped working. I said, well, here's some more money, and they said, oh, here's a new client. And it worked for quite a while, but then it stopped again. And every time Dropbox changes their mind about how they do it.
Yeah. There hadn't been. I think 06 is as far as I know, is the current one. But any other questions then?
Well, thank you.
That should be it then.
Yeah. Thank you.